Welcome to the Gender in Focus podcast. I'm Elle, and each week I get to ask Kai Scott, the president of Transfocus Consulting, all the questions you have ever wanted to ask about trans and non-binary people in the workplace and in the wider world.
There definitely is a critique out there that people are being too sensitive, right? And that this is really just for good laughs. If people have experienced kind of time and time again people making negative comment about, or joking about, or laughing at certain aspects of their gender identity, it then adds this additional layer.
When it comes to what you were saying about bodies, like that tends to be the focus when you're dressing up specifically to do with gender. Like you're making the joke is the gender of this person. Trans people's bodies are scrutinized so much, like in pretty much every corner of the internet, in like pretty much every conversation is the scrutinization of trans bodies.
Halloween's coming, and yes, we can have fun without being idiots. But every October, someone in the office pushes it too far. This episode, we're asking, what's the deal with dressing up as another gender at work? Sometimes it's harmless self-expression, even empowering. Other times it crosses the line into mockery and stereotype. So where's that line, and how is it different from drag? We'll unpack why this matters and how to keep creativity alive without punching down, and what it really means to balance expression with respect. Because a good costume should raise eyebrows, not HR flags. And I'm really excited to get into this topic with my esteemed colleague, Elle. Hi.
Hello. How's it going?
Great, especially with Halloween just around the corner. I haven't really actually done Halloween in a minute, but I could channel from many years ago.
Yeah, I can't say that I've ever experienced Halloween in an office space. So maybe we should do a Transfocus Halloween, should we?
Okay,
or should we dress up?
A reason for
dress
all
up as each other. That would be great.
Oh, now we're talking.
I'm kind of not anxious about this episode, but we haven't even begun, and I can already feel the eyes rolling a little bit at this when it comes to this, and sort of, I don't know, we're not really discussing what people are getting up to in their private lives and in private parties, but this is specifically about workplace settings, right? And what's kind of acceptable. And so I know a lot of people would look at this and be like, it's just a joke, it's just a bit of fun, right. Like, why are you being the fun police? But what might feel like a joke to one person is quite differently received by another person. And so I guess that's where I wanted you to start, sort of what is the problem when it comes to this, sort of specifically in a work context?
Yeah, it's so important to just pause. Again, we're not trying to police anybody's expression, but there's considerations, especially in a workplace where, like you said, there's diversity of experiences, and understandings and whatnot. And typically when we're talking about an office space, there can be space provided, at least on one day, for folks to dress up. Sometimes workplaces provide guidance, other times they don't. So you're kind of guessing. And, people can decide to dress up as another gender. So say they're a man and they decide to dress up as a woman, or vice versa, or perhaps as a non-binary person, or even a trans person. So what is this acceptable? What are the problems? When is it getting kind of out of hand? Typically, if it's done with respect and reference towards someone, especially if it's like an actual person, or maybe even a character within a film or a cartoon series or whatnot, and you're really focused on the individual in terms of who they are, their personality, what their gifts are, whatever, with the kind of really understanding them and wanting to showcase that, that is probably on the better side of things, versus the kind of hyper fixated on one or more aspects of that gender and kind of stereotyping them, whether it's how they express themselves in ways that are kind of either stereotypically feminine or masculine, or overemphasizing certain body parts. That can also come in play. And that just really kind of puts down what it means to be that gender, and it makes a mockery of it. And that is on the other side of the spectrum of the more problematic
Hmm.
side.
Hmm. So you've mentioned to me before that some people use Halloween as a sort of tool to
Mm,
experience or explore, express their gender identity, maybe in way like it's something that they haven't been able to do. And so this is like a perfect almost cover, I guess, to be able to
mm,
explore that in some way. And so where's the line with that?
mm.
And why does this complicate things a little bit?
Yeah. So it's not just about saying blanketly, no person can dress up as another gender,
Hmm.
because there could be nuances and complexities, particularly around somebody who is not out yet or
Hmm.
is even exploring what gender means to them and how they want to express themselves and who they
Hmm.
are fundamentally. I certainly remember playing with aspects. Of course, it was very subtle. Probably nobody could discern it except for me. I thought I was really going out on a limb. But that Halloween hat provides that avenue for expressing in a different way without raising, questions or quote concerns, right?
Hmm.
There's all these weird things that happen when people show up in a different gender expression, or express themselves in a different way from how they have in the past. And so Halloween affords them the possibility of just trying that on and seeing how it feels for them and how their connection to that expression, whether it feels authentic or perhaps it's off or maybe they need to adjust, or so that can be a really powerful moment of being with other people in that expression. And
Hmm.
so really it's not about shutting it down entirely, it's just providing some parameters for it to be done in a respectful way, in a way that is not making fun of
Hmm.
any particular gender, while also allowing people to explore if this is something that they want to do more long term.
Hmm. I want to go back to something you said, and you just said it again then. And I don't really know what my question is here, but it's more that a couple of times you've said about not making a mockery or understanding that other people have different experiences to you. And I don't know what my question is beyond exploring emotional intelligence, because that can be something that people could roll their eyes up a little bit, just
Mhm.
like, it's not that big of a deal. Like,
Right.
people have different experiences. We all have different experiences. It's not that big of a deal. Why is it important to actually think about this and on a beyond you having fun scale?
Mm.
Like, it's
Right.
not just you in an office. It's
Right.
everybody is there and everybody has to do that job. So
Collective
yeah.
experience. Absolutely.
Hmm.
I appreciate that question because defining things carefully and precisely can make things helpful for folks, right?
Hmm.
And there definitely is a critique out there that people are being too sensitive, right? And
Right.
that
Yeah.
this is really just for good laughs and where's your humor? And this is echoing a bit of what we talked about in an episode on joking about
Hmm.
trans people. And so, very similarly, when it comes to gender, if people have experienced kind of time and time again, uh, people making negative comment about, or joking about, or laughing at certain aspects of their gender identity, whether they're trans, non binary, or cisgender, it then adds this additional layer and almost permission structure for this to
Hmm.
continue to occur and maybe even be at a heightened state within the context of Halloween. It just kind of is like licensed to
Hmm.
continue what is already there, and it just adds more burden to folks, and even maybe extra burden because this is kind of just paraded out there to be like, isn't it funny that X, Y, and Z? I'm trying to think of a good example just to make this more concrete, but for some reason my mind is blanking. Where isn't it funny that feminine expressing people gesture with their hands, and isn't that ridiculous? And
Mm.
rather than being like, this is like a wonderful part of being more feminine, and why isn't
Hmm.
it celebrated? And or maybe not even celebrated, just it is,
Mhm.
rather than highlighting it and dragging it through the mud. And for somebody to think that that's okay to have as part of a costume, and then to uh, perform that aspect in a way that says that they think that's silly, um,
Mhm.
rather than actually something genuine as part of somebody's expression, no matter what their gender is or who they are. So, I mean, that's one small example. There are bigger ones where, especially when it comes to body, like a man, in a women's costume that is more feminine, with big boobs, you know,
Mhm.
let's go there. That's
Yeah.
thing that just like people, it's almost childish to like
Yeah.
focus in on that, and then kind of reinforce standards and expectations, or even make fun of those body parts or sexualize them or whatnot, right? Especially
Mhm.
within the context of work, that could be very difficult for somebody to see and experience, especially if they themselves have those body parts, right?
Mhm. Yeah. One of the things that I always do, because I am a killjoy, like in quite a lot of
Uh
settings,
huh.
I like being a killjoy sometimes. And so one of the things that I will always ask is like asking someone to very clearly lay out what the joke is. If they say it's
Mm,
just a joke, to get
yeah.
them to explain in detail what the joke is and who the butt of the joke is. And that
Mm,
usually can
hmm,
get you to understand why it's a bit inappropriate. Because if you, for
yeah.
example, I knew somebody here in Canada who dressed up as a trans woman for a
Mm,
Halloween party. And they were like, it's just a joke, it's just a fun joke. And so, like, a conversation where I was like, okay, what's the joke? Tell me the joke.
hmm,
And then it sort of unpinned, and then they felt really awkward. It's like, okay, if that is the joke, and really understanding what your joke is, and
hmm.
maybe it's a bit more layered than even you recognized.
Well, especially since the when people dress up as trans women, they're doing it in a way that is trope, that
Yeah,
uses tropes that are also mirrored in media. Like, this isn't just a one-time thing. That's a thing
yeah,
I think that's important to underscore. This is a repeat of something that happens so regularly and is so
yeah.
cavalier throughout society, and then it's just like amped up for Halloween,
Hmm.
and put on display too, in a way
Yes.
that if someone is a trans woman themselves, or is a loved one of a trans woman, like,
Hmm.
you name it, it's just like, oh my gosh, this is what you think of trans women,
Hmm.
and usually very narrowly defined,
Yeah.
and usually, quote, kind of missing the mark. Like, I'm heavy air quoting here, like in terms
Hmm.
of like they aren't really women because
Yeah.
they don't look like them, and we have a very narrow way of defining what a woman looks like and should
Hmm.
act like and whatnot. So, in not realizing the extreme difficulty of that lived experience,
Hmm.
I could go on, but
Oh, for sure.
and it's not to say that you can't dress up as a trans person too, right? I mean, that's a very egregious example of
Of
somebody
course.
mocking while
Mhm.
dressing up. Now, if, for example, you really are excited, or you really honor a trans person, in like maybe a famous trans person, you really like wanna, like any other kind of idol or some celebrity that you're excited about, that makes a little more sense, right? But then again, it's individually focused, right?
Presumably, you're not dressing up as them specifically because they are trans. You're dressing up as them
No,
because you like them being trans is just a thing about them. It's not the reason that you're dressing up as them.
exactly.
Presumably, is that
Yes.
what you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. By focusing in on who they are as an individual,
Mhm.
maybe there's some aspects that are about being trans, but that isn't the kind of driving force or the
Right.
butt of the joke, right? Is
Mhm.
like an example. This might sound a little funny, but I really like Chase Strangio for all the work that he's done. Specifically, the first trans lawyer to go in front of the known trans lawyer who has gone in front of the Supreme Court, and
Mhm.
like as a bit of a fan. person of Chase,
I'm
I
such a
would totally
fangirl of
dress up,
Chase. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's
absolutely.
like, but then I'd be focused on the lawyer aspect of it, right? And
Hmm.
like have maybe some like clever little book set of books that I would, assemble with like cheeky messages or what, like it's still about trans stuff, but it's not
Yeah,
focused on him or, physical aspects or
right.
in any way making fun of him being trans. It's actually honoring the pivotal role that he's played, right?
Hmm. Yeah, and I guess like I don't know when it comes to what you were saying about bodies, like that tends to be the focus when you're dressing up as specifically to do with gender. Like you're making
Mm.
the joke is the gender of this person, and the overemphasizing of just certain body parts. Trans people's bodies are scrutinized so much, like
Oh,
in pretty much every corner of the
yeah.
internet, on in like pretty much every conversation is
Yeah.
the scrutinization of trans bodies. And so to do
Healthcare.
that just as a joke, it's just like and you're putting somebody in a position where they're having to be fine with it because they're at work,
Mm,
so they have to pretend to be fine, and
mm,
they have to like
yeah.
sit next to you in your stupid office the whole day. So
Indeed. Right? It's so true. Yeah. Or if they bring it up as an issue, then now they're the problem, the person
right,
with the problem, right? Yeah.
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 So I want to talk about
Mhm.
drag, and what's the difference then between dressing up as another gender uh, and drag as a sort
Mm.
of form of art or performance or self-expression, or why is that
Yeah.
different?
It's such an important distinction, because sometimes people could be like, "Well, you all do that in the queer community. Why is it a
You all,
problem for me to do?"
you all do that.
Exactly, all the
You're
time.
right, right.
So yeah, the drag is very distinct from dressing up as another gender as part of a Halloween.
Hmm.
One of the distinction is the amount of time, right? So
Hmm.
one moment in time, one day, one evening of dress up versus somebody who is a drag artist who take on a persona that they either carry for several years or for a long time, for all their life. It's like a commitment made to that performance. And they may have multiple personas, but the it's all about that expression. Um, and oftentimes there is, although not for all drag artists, a critique of gender built into it. It's
Hmm.
a way of highlighting, yeah, why do we have this here? And it doesn't make sense for us to be this way in our society, when they sometimes over exaggerate certain aspects of that gendered experience. And it's meant to kind of free folks from that
Hmm.
limitation, or at least have people thinking about it and questioning it themselves. There's also a community aspect to drag artistry in that usually there is some sort of fundraising for queer and trans organizations or just tightly woven within community, putting on spaces where people can come together and especially during tough times, I would say particularly within the AIDS crisis and other crises that we've had, that bringing of people together is paramount for survival.
Hmm.
Like there's
Yeah.
no like over exaggerating the importance of that within community. And so there's a lot more to it that is, kind of affirming than it is about kind of making fun of. There can be cheeky aspects to it. I'm not going to say that, everything's cut and dry
Right.
within drag. Obviously, there's many different types of drag and whatnot, but um, there's certain, and there can be very fair critique of drag for, emphasizing or um, eh, giving into gendered stereotypes. So I'm not saying that drag is beyond reproach, but I would say it is very distinct from what somebody would do as like a one-off, more
Hmm.
flippant decision, maybe not thoughtfully, you know,
Hmm.
organized, and just kind of putting it together.
Hmm. As someone from the UK,
Mhm.
where making fun of people is the way that we show love, and
That's awesome.
There's a lot of love in banter and cheekiness and making fun of someone, and I personally love when someone will call out something that I'm doing that's ridiculous, or like I enjoy that
Mm,
process. For me, there's a line between, like, if the person I'm making fun of is laughing as well,
mm,
then I know this is exactly where the line is and exactly where I want to be. And
right.
when that crosses over to them feeling uncomfortable or feeling sad about it, I just feel like it's bullying, and that is a horrible.
Mm,
There is a line. And so I guess I wanted to ask you about that. And how do you know whether something's okay? Like, if you have this fun Halloween
mm,
idea that you think is hilarious or funny,
mhm.
or even just something that you want to do, but you're like, ooh, I don't know. I don't know if this is okay. How do you determine that?
Yeah. That's so important to kind of check in with oneself. And I think there's a kind of like a self check-in and then there's a check-in with other people. So check in with oneself to see like, okay, why do I want to do this? What's underneath this? Kind of some of the
Mhm,
questions you had about somebody dressing up as a trans woman. Like,
mhm,
what is the joke? If there is the kind of playfulness to it. What is that playfulness dependent on making fun of somebody,
mhm,
of their identity, especially if it's kind of based on stereotyping rather than, something kind of original or creative or whatnot, right? Uh,
mhm,
and whether it's kind of celebrating somebody or maybe more on the mockery side of the spectrum, that can help kind of clarify things.
mhm,
And then another thing is checking in with other people. So, if you have a trusted person in your life, a family member, a friend, even a coworker, to be like, I'm thinking of this, and showing visuals too that can often make a difference. How the vibe of it,
mhm. Yeah.
and to be like, okay, what's how does this land for that person? And if they go, ooh, I wouldn't do that, it's not to say you shouldn't, but might give more pause, more time for reflection. Or if they're
Right.
like in stitches, maybe you have the same humor.
Right.
um, maybe you should ask a few people. But yeah, it's just kind of, it's again not intended to kind of police anybody. It's just more understanding that there's a diversity of responses and just being able to anticipate what those might be. And also, I would say, if you do decide to do the costume of another gender, that during the celebrations themselves, as you're in the costume, being open to people
Mhm,
talking to you about it too. So it's almost, you have to be a little bit more prepared for
mhm,
dialogue. Whether it's like, oh, I really like this, this is cool, or like, hey, this is impacting me in these ways. So not to be
mhm,
surprised or caught off guard by that, to be like, oh yeah, I thought about that and was kind of on the fence as to whether or not to do it. And thank you for providing that feedback. I'll keep that in mind. Or
mhm,
even if it's like really awful feedback or feedback that indicates it's an awful experience, maybe being
mhm.
ready to
Go
either get
home.
out of that costume, go home. Just like, yeah, have a few backups, not like other costumes, or maybe if that's your thing, you should, but just be ready to pivot, if need be, right? Depending on
Mhm,
what kinds of reactions you get. So it's a little bit more dynamic than perhaps other costumes. And maybe that's too much head or heart space or heart work,
mhm.
then maybe it's not for you to take on, right?
What do you think this topic can teach us about inclusion, sort of more broadly? We're just talking about one day, but
Mhm.
like, there are some things that can sort of be seen year wide when
Yeah,
it comes to this.
for sure. This is a good kind of case study of how to be thoughtful. Maybe we don't need to think about things so intensively every single day, but there are moments where it can give us opportunity to think things through in a more
Mhm,
concrete and inclusive way that we just have to consider others. I know that seems kind of basic, but there's a like personal desire, but then there's also what lands on the other side for other people. and just having a wider circle of people to think about as one is going forward. And it's not to say that it kind of says nothing at all, but it's also like a little bit more thought or preparation to do what one is personally drawn to doing, or thinks would be funny, or a laugh. So it's just that little extra legwork to think it through. One other thing I wanted to mention about Halloween that was just occurring to me, and this is a slightly different side of things than we've been talking about, but is just to reflect that, or for us to reflect on the fact that many of the costumes are kind of marketed towards one gender or the other, and how that can kind of reinforce stereotypes in of it themselves as well. And that can complicate things for trans folks, who some of them don't feel the need to or want to be limited in those ways. And so that can make things difficult. If you think about like the stereotypical firefighter, like it's very much clearly, or action figure hero or whatnot, it's always very clearly billed towards a particular gender. I'll let you guess which one.
Right.
So, and the nurse outfit, like, again, eye roll. So that, in what ways can we break down stereotypes there as well, for everybody's ability to express themselves in a respectful way, right? Yeah, could that be something that yeah, anyone could like, or have marketing that indicates that it could be for any expression or person of any expression?
Great. We do have a resource.
Yes.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, this is a resource, again, geared similar to this episode towards workplaces, and just some considerations, guidelines for how to dress up in a way that's not, denigrating any gender, or trans or non-binary folks, and ways that you can have respectful costumes, or think through some of the decision making around dressing up as another gender at work. And hopefully that helps, not just for employers to provide clarity to their employees, but also for employees to think through, and hopefully feel more confident in the outfits that they choose to show up at work for Halloween.
Great. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Kai.
Thank
Happy
you.
Halloween.
Same to you, for our non-dressing up Halloweens. We're
Exactly.
playing it safe. Have a good one.
Cool. See you later. Bye.
Bye.